Hello, this is the NICU Lived Network, and we are your hosts. I'm Melinda.
I'm Nat.
And I'm Emma. We are all NICU mothers using our lived experience to partner with health professionals to impact research, advocacy, and clinical practice.
Each week we will bring you something new. It could be a topic highlight, the latest in research, a visit to a NICU, or ways in which you can use your lived experience within the NICU to impact change. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to this week's episode of NICU Lived. Hi Mel, hi Nat.
Hi.
So tonight we just wanted to talk about the Australia and New Zealand Neonatal Network CPI conference that we recently went to. This one for us is quite special because this is where where we came about the idea for NICU Lived. Now, just to give you a bit of background, so Australia and New Zealand Neonatal Network, which is a tongue twister every time I try and say it, is basically a collaborative network that monitors the care of higher risk infants. So they take all the data across Australia and New Zealand and they use that in all the research and clinical practice improvements that they're doing. Now, a couple of weeks ago, can you remember what date it was, ladies? It was the going back now. I think it's the 22nd. We all attended. So it was the first time the three of us have been together for a year, I think, since the last one that we went to.
Once a year in-person event.
Once a year in-person event, so which is awesome. Now, the CPI conference, I might throw to Melinda on this one just to talk through what CPI is, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the conference and what that looks like.
Yeah, so in relation in regards to the NICU, it's a process of continuously evaluating and improving the quality of care provided to NICU patients and their families. So it can focus on a whole lot of different areas, such as improving the prevention and treatment of common NICU procedures, reducing the risk of infections and other complications, improving the coordination of care between different healthcare providers and different facilities, increasing family involvement, which is big for us, in babies' care and in decision-making, reducing the length of hospital stays for babies, and improving the quality of life for NICU patients and also their families.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess the conference has been running for 6 years, which is where I think was that when we all first met. I think we've spoken before, but I think first time we were all together. Now the conference covers off. There's delegates all across Australia and New Zealand, and we've had people now. It's getting bigger and bigger as we go along. There's people coming in from overseas, really talking about the research and everything that each of the hospitals are doing, what they're looking to achieve, and really just getting I guess more information on what other hospitals are doing to improve outcomes. I might get you, because we were all part of it and we all had little pockets within each of the conferences, but I might pass across to one of you ladies to talk through a bit more about, I guess, the overall conference and then also the fee care session that we were all part of as well.
My impression is that initially in the early years when I was there, that a lot of the discussions or papers were about, these are the projects we're doing and what is everyone else doing and how can we kind of work together to make these things happen. But now it seems to be a lot of the theme and a lot of the talks that I got to watch this at the conference this year was about implementation. There was a real focus, seemed to be like a maturing project and a real focus on, this is the research, but how do we actually make this happen? So my key takeaway was that a lot of it was about, knowledge translation and research implementation, which was really exciting. I think that seemed to be like a stronger theme this year. And then the other one, which I really was grateful to hear, was that you need more and more consumers at this event. So that was really nice. Like, we didn't really have to say much in that space, but you could, particularly on the last day, you could hear from the speakers themselves, like, we really need to make sure that consumers are involved in a lot more of the committee work that happens at this conference.
And I think that feeds back nicely to why this idea of the NICU Live Network came about. And Melinda, I might get you to share, I guess, about that, how we met last year. And I think it feeds off what Nat was saying around the consumer involvement. And yeah, I'll pass across to you to kind of talk through.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about it in the context of this particular network and conference. One of the things that always fascinated me when I learnt about the ANZNN was, like you said, Em, about it being where the data gets pulled. So, I think back to even when I was in the delivery suite with Dylan, and knowing he was 27 weeks and wanting the stats, you know, what was his rates of survival and all of that. Like, this is the network where those numbers come from. And I find that completely fascinating as a parent. And for me, I think watching them all together, like you said, all the delegates come from every single NICU across Australia and New Zealand, wanting to share information and share practice and see how they can do it better. I think for me, that's completely incredible. And year after year, we've been to nearly every year. I think we've been at all of them. We get the privilege and the honour to sit in those conferences and in those talks and take part in the discussion. But it happens behind a closed door. Like, it's not something that everyday parents going through the NICU now or in the past are really aware of. Like, I had no idea that the ANZNN existed when I had my boys. I had no idea that Pazant existed, that there was this whole world behind the scenes doing their best to improve health and improve outcomes, and the fact that we can be a part of it. So for us, year after year, we're sitting there listening to all this and thinking, how can we have an opening and open these discussions a lot easier for families? And this was our way to do it. Let's just get on and record episodes and just talk across the things that matter on this side of research and advocacy and clinical practice improvement. I know for me personally, you know, being able to be involved across different aspects of the conference. So even within, say, for example, the poster sessions, seeing, you know, 2 research projects as the WEET trial, which we've had an episode on, and then also the Wait a Minute or More, or the WAM trial, which will be on a future episode, which is about delayed cord clamping. So just seeing that, I guess, come to fruition and, you know, see the posters up there, see the information being shared with the NICUs, and also the NICUs that are taking part in the trial is really exciting. And then, being part of, I think, the FICARE session on the Tuesday, I think that was probably a really special moment for all of us.
It was. And I think for me, every time I go, it's the work that's being put in and the outcomes for premature kids. It's just, you know, from even 22, 23 weekers from the research that's being done, the survival rates are a lot higher. And the commitment, I think, from each of NICUs and the delegates in general is huge. So it's really heartwarming from that. And the FICARE session, Nat and I were fortunate enough to present, I guess, our stories to. We probably had about 40, 50 people, I think, in the room. It seemed like a lot more, but it was probably about 40 or 50 people when you're standing in front of them all. But Nat and I got to share our stories with them. And then off the back of that, there were a lot of conversations on which of the NICUs, you know, what they were doing. There was a lady who came across from Canada, and she was talking through what they've done over there as well, which is amazing. I'm really bad with names. Was it Misha? Just trying to remember her name again now. But she... Marsha, nearly there. It's Sunday night. So, but Marsha, and she was sharing the work that they put in. Yeah, she was fabulous. And I think everybody was really, really embracing and what they can do and asking questions of all of us from a lived experience perspective of around how they can better engage with families. And it's hard to find the right words about, you know, that warm, fuzzy feeling you get of the involvement and the questions. And it's an amazing session to run. I think I've done it probably the last 2 or 3 years now as well, which is really good. So each time, you know, you can see the improvements that each of the units have implemented and what they're looking to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's I think like it's the conference overall is it's really heartwarming, because there is this, you know, it really opens my eyes every time to the fact that, you know, there is this huge huge group of people who are just constantly trying to make things better. You know, there's this constant pursuit of excellence, so that, you know, more and more babies do survive, and that more and more babies and families have better outcomes. Like, that's just, you know, it really, I walk away from this conference really kind of touched. It's like, oh, I'm so glad for these people for, you know, being part of this.
And the opportunity,
the work they do.
And the opportunity to be part of it is great. And I think I said somebody before, I'm just a parent. They were like, no, the value that we bring and lived experience people bring to any of the research projects, to the conferences. I don't think there's enough lived experience people that are working with the hospitals as well at the moment. The input and the value that we can give to them is amazing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I agree. It kind of, you can talk so much about, programs, etc., but it's great. Yeah, it's great to have people on the ground to say, this is how it impacts us, or have you thought about this? Coming from a parent, it really kind of changes. It can kind of just help kind of inform and improve things.
It was quite funny with the questions. We're sitting in the fee care session, and I think that most of them were directed at us, I think, during it, around our experiences and what do we think about this. It was like, wow, I thought they'd be talking within themselves, but I would say probably 60-70% of the questions were getting our input in there, which is, it was awesome.
Actually, Mel, you said something which I think was a beautiful summary at the end of that FICARE session, kind of because you've seen FICARE from the very beginnings to what it is now. Like, do you mind kind of sharing that? I thought that was a beautiful summary of where FICARE was at.
Yeah, I think more just about the evolution of the way FICARE has developed. So I was fortunate enough to be invited when Canada first started this study. So FICARE and the concept, I think, came from a model in Switzerland where they have full integration of parents within the unit. And then Canada was putting together the family integrated care model as a research project. And Professor Key Louis from Royal Women at Randwick wanted to be part of that. So then some Australian sites joined that collaborative study, which was amazing. And I was invited to be an investigator on that. So I think in those really early days, it was like a new concept to be able to kind of flip what care looks like and have parents actually more involved, rather than just being somebody that may change nappies or, things like that, or, provide breast milk, but actually be integrated, not seen as visitors, but part of the baby's care team. And I do remember being at a conference in Canada with Fabiana, who heads up the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. And her and I are having a little bit of a giggle in the back saying, isn't it interesting that you have to study whether it's a good idea to have parents involved in the care of their babies? Because for us, it's just a no-brainer. Of course, this makes sense. But when it's actually studied and you can see the benefits and the why, it kind of like just tips it on your head as saying, of course, this is something that really matters. And some of the benefits that came out of that study was for a baby, just that skin to skin contact, having more integration with their parents, regulate heartbeat, their breathing, their temperature, shorter hospital stays, less likely to have infections, better attachment for breastfeeding. All of those things just had a massive effect. So I think what you're getting at is going through that evolution that I found in the workshop. I felt like a lot of the staff felt like they weren't doing enough. And I just really wanted them to acknowledge in that moment that, since I've had my boys, I've been out, Jasper's 17, so from 21 years with Elijah, and those 17 years, what they do now for parents, I could have only have dreamt of at that time. So even though there's so much more further that we can do in terms of within the units and really integrating parents, it really has come such a long way. And I think, I just wanted them to take that moment to not feel that they hadn't come far enough, because the units have made massive strides to really put parents at the forefront and make them part of the baby's team, rather than, like we said, we don't want to be seen as visitors. And that was some of the things that Marsha was talking about, not using that language. Not saying, oh, when will you visit the baby? No, like, you're part of the team. When will you be here? Or just changing that language. I thought that was really, really special. But the evolution of FICARE and where it can go now, because it is accepted and is considered to, be so important to babies' outcome and development. I think, it's amazing.
The fact that everybody was there and asking questions and looking to see how much more they can do shows the commitment from all of the NICUs as well. Even in the 9 years, I think even the 9 years since I had my son, it's evolved again and again. So it can, it's what can I say, really? There's no words, really. It will keep evolving, and just seeing the contribution and what they're looking to achieve in that session, for me, again, shows the value of being part of it as a parent.
You know, one of the biggest takeaways, because both of you at the beginning of the session shared your stories, like your birth stories with your boys, just the power of the stories. And every time you can repeat them over and over, but you learn something new every time. And I think when they talk about more parents being involved across the conference, so the three of us were all in that breakout session, which meant all the other sessions across the conference didn't have parents, didn't have those with lived experience in them. They're missing that power and that value of the stories, and then what that experience can bring to the table. So yeah, I thought, and I took a photo at the back of the room while the two of you were presenting, and it's like goosebumps, you know, that you can come back and share that, but the power behind it.
And I think that was the biggest surprise for me at the end of the conference, was that, you know, you heard from the other speakers who were in those other subcommittees that, you know, perhaps we need more consumers involved, and perhaps we need consumers across the board in all the other subcommittees. And that was really exciting. It's like, oh, that's great. So I guess time will tell. I think that's wonderful, you know, that people are, you know, thinking that way already and advocating for that. That's wonderful.
We were fortunate enough as well to be able to talk through NICU Live Network, and Mel pulled together this fabulous video just summarising what we've done so far. I don't know how many delegates were in there. I reckon it's got to be a good 200 plus. It looked like a lot of faces as we were standing up there. So we talked through that. Really fortunate to be able to do that. And there were questions at the end. I've never seen so many questions. Haven't seen so many thank you for what you're doing. Are there any other parents that we can get involved? Are you here? All the different states. There was so much, I guess, respect for, you know, just sharing what they're doing to the broader outside of the conference. I don't know if Mel, if there's any thoughts that you had off the back of that as well, but it was, again, that was my little smiley moment walking out of there and just seeing how much investment they are looking for from parents to give their viewpoint and, you know, make sure, you know, that they're heading in the right direction.
Well, I think it's kind of having, so like when I first had the boys and then wanted to come back and you know, give back and support and do things like that, it was always in my head around the peer-to-peer parent support. So helping parents through that emotional journey and having a look at programs on how we can support the family as a unit, particularly from an emotional point of view. So this is a really different aspect for me. And, you know, being introduced to this side to say, oh, okay, so this is about using your story and your experience to partner with health professionals to then change the way care looks. So it's really so different. So, yeah, I always, like, it gives me goosebumps. I think there's so much power and value to doing this. But you're right, like, how do we inspire more parents to do what we're doing, you know, and what does that look like, and how can we grow that, and how can we work with all the other support groups around the country to really build I guess like a pool of parents that want to use their voice on this side and be part of this story. I think, there's so much opportunity, and like you said, having those discussions with the health professionals, they're asking us, well, can you be part of this? Can we have parents for this? And what does that look like? How do we do that?
Yeah. It's a wonderful and exciting space to be in. And I think you just reminded me when you guys were talking, is that we've had a few emails from the people at the conference as well, which has been really nice, just following up and saying, hey, you know, we're interested in getting in touch, or, you know, we'd love to kind of promote the network through our spaces, and also just, that people are getting in touch with us post-conference, because clearly what they're doing is resonate. What we're trying to do is resonating with other health professionals in the neonatal neonatology space.
Yeah, I think our list of followers increased quite significantly post the conference as well. Most of those would have been from the healthcare professional side. So keeping us busy, which is good.
If there are any families that are interested in the Australian New Zealand Neonatal Network or their annual conference that they do in September, October in Sydney, please get in touch with us, or perhaps we can put a link to the network's website as well. But I think the network is really keen to get more and more consumers involved in the work that they do going forward, because they know that parents as partners is critical for driving any kind of improvements in the NICU.
Yeah, and I think not being afraid to be part of it as well, and you can be involved as much or as little as you want. Even with the CPI conference, I was jumping out to work and then coming back to work within the fee care session. So don't be put off. Your voice is super important, no matter how involved you are.
Absolutely.
Now, can I ask you, separate to the conference, because you're part of the executive committee, what does it look like for you and for parents? Because there's different subcommittees across the network, and I know there's conversation about each of those subcommittees having representation from parents or people with lived experience. What does that look like for you? What's that time commitment across the year separate to the conference?
On the executive committee, there's not much of a huge time commitment. It's several meetings a year. I think each meeting is for about an hour and a half long. I think maybe 4 meetings minimum. I'm not sure. But that's when they have representatives with the main NICUs coming in and talking just about, how all the subcommittees are going. And it's really interesting, because it just gives you kind of that strategic oversight over what's happening with the NICU and also their future planning. Yeah, so I think it's wonderful that they have consumers such as myself involved.
Well, I think there's actually, I'm just having a look at, even with, the other projects that we've been talking about across the episodes, including the SUPRE trial, the platypus trial that's coming up, and actually seeing parents put their hand up to say, yep, we'd love to be part of a working group. Yeah, I think slowly there is kind of like a growing community of parents wanting to use, their journey and what they've gone through to help better health. And we know as parents, it makes a difference to us, to acknowledge none of us would choose to be NICU mums or go through this experience and have our babies come into the world the way that they did. But yeah, there's some kind of, I don't know how to explain it. Just gives me a sense of purpose, I guess, to be able to contribute and make a difference and pay it forward. So I think, there might be this growing movement that more and more want to do that, and hopefully we can be a part of being able to support that and build better partnerships with the health professionals. Yeah, what we wanted to do, right? Wasn't it? Open that door so we can let more parents know what's going on so that they can join us. Yeah,
the hidden world of NICU and CPI. I think being able to the ability to be able to share that out to the network is huge.
Yeah, and that I think, all the professionals are really receptive to consumers. They understand that consumers are really important in shaping and informing the work or their work. And I think that's really a wonderful thing, that they're actually saying, come on, we need more consumers involved in what we do, because the best way to make it better is to have families involved every step of the way.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to wrap up, I think, this episode, I reckon, on this one.
Yes. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode. Again, if you're interested in the ANZNN or just their annual conference, please get in touch. I will also leave their website down below. But keep an eye out, everyone, because I think, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. They're definitely keen to get more consumers involved in any future work that they do. And we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Thanks. Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of the NICU Live Network. Thanks for joining us today. To stay connected, please make sure you're following us on social media
And if you found value in this episode, please share, like, or comment.
We'll see you on the next episode.